Jane Morgan now joins us with the details and actually to translate what I just said. So thank you so much for being here. Ruxolitinib. So what is, first of all, explain how that works in common English, because that was a lot of terminology.
That is a lot of terminology. I don't know why we make it so complicated. Those are tough words. So it is what's called a type of Janus kinase inhibitor, a type of protein inhibitor. And you're right, we use it as a cancer drug to treat myelofibrosis, a type of bone marrow cancer, polycythemia vera, type of blood cancer, and even graft versus host disease, where your grafts in your body or on your body can be rejected. And this medicine can help with that. And so that's where these come from. And we're starting to see now that there may be some crossover between these Janus kinase inhibitors and something called CAMK2, which is present in heart muscle and can help us with atrial fibrillation. So a crossover effect of these drugs.
So what's happening when you have AFib? What is happening? Your heart's beating, but it's not beating in a regular beat.
You know, such a great question. Atrial fibrillation is a disordered beating of the heart. So the top chambers of the heart, called the atria, there are two of them, are beating out of concert with the lower chambers of your heart, the ventricles. And so there's this disordered beating, and that's why you can have blood sort of coagulate in those chambers, because there's not actual forward movement, and you have a risk of stroke and these blood clots. And so atrial fibrillation, although fairly common, is actually quite serious.
So this drug can help that movement, can help it get into the right rhythm, we hope, so that that blood doesn't collect, is what
And
you're
so
saying.
what happens is, if it inhibits these CAMK2 cells, those cells are important for performance of the heart and your heart rate. And so if it inhibits that, it can slow down some of that performance movement and disordered beating. And it specifically, in these mice and in these human cells, looks as if it inhibits some of these inheritable arrhythmias, specifically of the ventricle, but also of the atria, so the top part of the heart, this atrial fibrillation. And so it's actually quite exciting. These inheritable arrhythmias, meaning that you are born with them.
Right.
You have inherited them. And so there's nothing you can do about them. They go everywhere from being asymptomatic all the way to sudden cardiac death. In fact, we recognize these type of arrhythmias as being the cause of sudden cardiac death in both children and in adults.
Wow.
So this is really, really exciting. We may be able to repurpose a drug that we're already using effectively in specific types of cancer and use it now in cardiology for arrhythmias.
Let's talk about the timeline, because we know that everything has to get approved. It has to go through, the entire approval process. We know it's working in mice, but when can we see human trials? And then how long from that point might we see it maybe get to the market?
And so that will determine what else we see coming out of what we call these preclinical trials, these mice and other animal studies. And from there it goes to a phase one meaning healthy volunteers, and then on to phase two, where we actually need to find the dose. Currently, this is an oral pill, 5 milligrams, 10, 15, 20, 25, generally given twice a day. That's for cancer. That may not be the dose for cardiology. And so unfortunately, it probably will be a few years as we go through this process, which is very regimented for the safety of the public, to make certain that this drug can be used.
But promising nonetheless. It looks like it's coming down,
Absolutely
down the pike
promising.
there somewhere.
Keeping our eye on it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Dr. Jane Morgan, we appreciate you always here with all of your insight.
Thank you.
One of our contributors here on Morning Rush. And we'll be right back.